Hi, this is Joe Rosales, CEO and founder of Sprigeo, and I have a very special guest with us here today, Karen Epstein. Welcome. We're both here at the National Conference on Girl Bullying and Relational Aggression. Just happens that we were both in Atlanta, and well, I say that, but I knew that we were both going to be here. But we have an opportunity to sit down today and talk about your story and what you're doing now and how it relates to the world of education and also I think in particular on this topic of bullying. So welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we've had a little bit of an opportunity to talk here before we started the recording of the interview. But for those people who are watching it just now, tell us a little bit about where you are, what you're doing, what you're excited about.
I am the assistant principal at Georgetown Day High School in Washington, D.C. I am very excited to be at my school. I work with a great group of teachers and administrators, and we have a curriculum and I believe an approach to discipline that lets us jump into quote unquote bullying, relational aggression issues before they even happen in many cases, and lets us intervene and empower kids to have choices and to understand more about what they're doing and to think about it ahead of time.
Which I think is something that is in great demand and in short supply. So it's great to hear that you are headed down that track and have a solution that you feel like is making a difference. So tell us a little bit more about what you've created.
Well, I don't take credit. It's been lots of people around me, but first of all, we have a 24/7 policy.
Okay.
In terms of discipline, which means that we care about you and you are accountable to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It doesn't mean that we ferret out what kids are doing on the weekends. We don't have an interest in going to their parties, but it gives us the opportunity to have conversations. So when we hear rumors, when we hear about things like somebody's picking on somebody's posting things on Facebook about somebody, or there was a party and something happened, we can have a conversation because what happens outside of school spills into the classroom, into the hallways. And one of the things that we also have an opportunity to do is to talk about the social dynamics that are happening outside of school.
And having those conversations with your students. And thinking back to this past year, we're now in the summer at the end of the school year. Are there any incidents, not specific things maybe that have come to mind, but opportunities that you've had to sit down and talk with students that you feel like there's been a change?
Yes, the real people that I hear about change from are parents, which is kind of interesting. I will frequently have a parent call and tell me about an incident that their son or daughter doesn't want to tell anybody about because they're afraid they're going to be called a rat, a snitch, they're going to be embarrassed, it's going to get worse.
There's an incident and it occurs, you give an opportunity for the person who's been named in the incident to come in and have a conversation with you without disclosing that person's identity. And I think that goes a long way to really not only keep a child coming back to have conversations with you because now they trust you. They trust the fact that they can reveal information, but do that in a confidential way without the scrutiny of their peers. But there's the other part of any incident, which are the kids who are standing by watching. And are those kids that you also welcome into a conversation?
Absolutely. Because I want to go back for a second to the student who has reported an incident, whether it's about something happening to themselves or to someone else. They are not going to be singled out by me. And one of the things I will ask them is, how would you like to see me handle this? What are some things that if you were me, that you would do? And free associate, think freely, don't be limited, pretend that there would be no retaliation. What would you want to see happen? And they'll go through a list of options, and I will explore with them, well, what are you worried about if I do that? What are you worried about if I do that? What are the pros and cons? And then usually what it comes down to is people are going to know. And then I'll reassure them that other kids are not going to know that they came in and that they are the ones, because if this is happening and you've seen it, so has someone else, and so has someone else has heard about it. There's plenty of kids out there who know. And so I will ask if they feel comfortable letting me know who I should talk to about this. And I'll go out and talk to those kids. And then I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 students who have the same separate story about a particular incident or an ongoing pattern by a particular student. Then I'll ask the student to come in who's the bully or posting things. And I'll ask them first if they know why they're here. And now sometimes they tell me something that they've done that I didn't know they had done, but usually we will get down to what happened with this incident. And the first question I'll ask them is, what happened and what were you trying to do? So I'll ask them what they were trying to accomplish, why they picked that particular person. Very frequently then it goes back to something that person did to them. And so we'll go through the whole conversation, and I will then say, but look, what you did went over the top. You've caused harm to someone. And I'm sorry, I know that this must have been hard for you when this person was doing this to you, but this can't happen. And if you let me know that this kid has done this to you in the future, I will do something with them as well. So what do you think the consequences should be here? And what do you think would help make amends? Because I'm not as interested in, or I'm not only interested in you stopping this behavior, because I want to make sure that you actually want to stop this behavior. And what would make you want to stop this behavior? And so we'll go from there into solutions. How can you make amends? And how can you create a snapshot of yourself that when your peers look at in the yearbook 20 years from now, they won't remember you as, how do you want to be remembered? So
I love the emphasis on helping kids, and particularly during adolescence, teenage years, giving them the opportunity to think ahead, to consider the possible cause and effect relationship that kids during that time in their lives are so noted for not being able to consider. But giving them an opportunity to have that discussion, a non-judgmental. I love the fact that you said, I don't pin them with a label. Why did you bully this other student? Just talk to me about what happened, what were your intentions, and that gets them thinking about the motivation for their action that will then potentially change future action, which is, I think, really where we're moving. It's how can you consider what you're doing now, the impact of what has happened, and then talk about what you're going to be doing in the future. Thanks for laying that out. I think what you shared, Karen, is so important because there are so many folks at a school site level, and whether you've just come into education and you're in your first year in any specific role, teacher to administrator, or you've been in for years and years, having a set system and then being able to deviate from that and based on the interaction you have with a student, but knowing how you're going to follow up when you hear of an incident so that you have a protocol for being able to do that. What I heard you say was we interview the person who was named in the incident, we talk to potential bystanders, we talk to the child who was then named as the aggressor in the incident, so that we have a full picture. And almost what I heard you say without saying it is this idea of restorative justice seems to have worked its way into part of that equation.
Yeah, I really believe that kids need to be able to redeem themselves. Children make mistakes, and even though I deal with high school and they should supposedly know better, they do, but their frontal lobes aren't fully developed, so it's not always going to happen. And I like them to, one of the things I always ask them to do, even if this rises to a level of disciplinary action, is think about how you're feeling right now. And do you want to feel this way again? And what would stop that from happening? I also, if a student is not seeing anything wrong with what they've done, which every once in a while happens, then I will ask, I will let them tell me what they did, why they did it. But then I'll ask them, do you have any idea why I might be worried about what you're doing? And let them kind of guess at that. And usually they can. And that's the benefit of teaching high school. You can ask an abstract question like that.
But leave the door open for them to share with you an explanation, as opposed to giving them statements that are accusatory, which, having worked with kids across the age levels, but particularly in the teenage years, don't want to be accused of anything, become very defensive, and then you shut off the entire conversation. So asking those open-ended, abstract questions gives kids the opportunity to talk about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, and allowing them to come to conclusions that you might have stated in another context, but they've come to the conclusion. So it's far more beneficial, far more powerful, I think.
I also like to educate them a little bit. Can't help it. But when I ask them that question about, do you know why this might worry me, underneath all of bullying and all of relational aggression, I believe anyway, it are two fundamental things. One is they need more help with social skills and reframing relational changes with the girls especially. A lot of this comes down to not just a quest for power and staying on top, but an inability to extract themselves from friendships as they move on and as their interests change, or to change friendships or transition into different kinds of relationships. And so the easy way to deal with that is to say, I don't like her, I don't like him, and I'm just going to, make them go away. And similarly with boys, I'm aware that I'm a woman, obviously, and there's a certain dynamic. And I'm conscious of the fact that there's a masculinity I need to respect, but each boy defines kind of what his level of masculinity is. And I don't have a right to challenge that, but what I do have a right to do is to talk to both girls and boys about how their masculinity and femininity are operating to get to have us sitting where we are right now. Why are we sitting here? Why are you in my office? And what are the other ways what are the alternative ways of looking at your masculinity and femininity? I don't say that to them usually, but I'll ask questions like, well, why do you feel like this is the way to do this? And let it come from them.
And as you said earlier, they often can come up with ideas. They understand, they don't necessarily, I guess, understand why they do the things they do, but they can certainly verbalize and try and articulate what they've done and what might be the possible motivation for what they've done. And that's the teachable moment.
Yeah, and I love those. That's the best part of teaching. And in my workshop yesterday, I told the participants that one of the mistakes I made is going through my first 26 years of teaching, worrying about I'm not doing enough to fix this, that, and the other thing, as opposed to taking a minute to appreciate what I had done, which was not in the lesson plan. And those are the teachable moments, and I think those are the most exciting parts of teaching.
I hope people get that as well as what you've shared. I think if wisdom could be shared, and it's a hope that we all hope for, it would be within what we've talked about today. There's been some amazing points that you've shared that I think are going to benefit people who've been in education for 2, 3, 4 decades, if there are still folks out there, all the way down to people who are just coming in. This has been some good
thank you.
stuff. Thank you very much for
There
sitting
is
down.
one other thing
Please do.
I want to say, and that is the main reason that I think bullying and relational aggression provide a teachable moment is not just about the things that we anticipate are going to happen that we can put into the curriculum to help us not have these things happen, like classes that involve a lot of problem solving and goal setting, but also because we know that students learn more when it's personal to them. And there is no time when a student has more engagement an interest in learning something than when they have either been bullied or they are in my office in trouble for bullying. So it's personal.
And when it's personal, there's that level of interest that's so
Mhm.
much higher than
Mhm.
when it's something completely irrelevant or out of context.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's great to be able to meet you in person. I'm glad that we were able to come together here at this conference, and thank you again for spending time with me.
Thank you, Joe. I really enjoyed meeting you, and your presentation today was terrific.
Thank you.
And gave me some ideas about how to encourage students to report.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.